Scribbled notes, scribbled notes when I wrote these quotes. If I offend, pardon me, there's more of me to grow. Creative in my process, enjoy the show. The will is different when you recognize the different strokes. Different folks, same goals, we all want the most. So when we reach the top, we can enjoy the toast. The type of bread we get is fresh about the bakery. Told them don't play with me, with or without a degree. Don't question my intensity, bravery. Similar to agencies that want to see you fold. So just pray for me. Yeah, Einstein with my energy.
Welcome to the Scribbled Notes podcast. How are you doing, bro?
I'm not too bad.
We're
improving and outstanding.
Love to hear that. Yo, introduce yourself for the listeners.
All right, so you may know me as DJ Funky Fresh. No, I'm kidding. It is AR Mirabal. I am an author, podcaster, I guess artist. It sounds weird to call yourself an artist, but I paint and shit. You know, I make like art. Owner of Neotino Publishing House, helping out indie authors, do a whole bunch of services. We do cover designs, bookmark designs, promotions, everything now.
Hey.
And it is a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for making some time and coming on. Been meaning to talk to you for a while. So
yeah, always good chat.
Why don't we start first with some of the business things? I feel like we got to talk some business.
Definitely. Always ready for that.
Why don't you talk a little bit about how you started and some of the business aspects of the publishing author world that you've found out over the last course of however long it's been?
All right. Well, the very first thing that I did, I got my minors in business. So the very first thing that when I understood the industry a little bit more, and honestly, a year or something changed later, I still don't know the industry, but based on what I had found out at the time, the main thing that I understood was that it was going to be a sunk cost, meaning that like it's money that you're spending that you're not necessarily like getting back within a reasonable time frame, right? So making a book can cost anywhere from $1,000 to way over that. I have people that have 10,000 on their debut.
Crazy.
Including marketing, including getting paid reviews like Kirkus or IPPY. Like there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do in order to get your book out there. And the main thing that I was looking at from a business standpoint was like, money. Like, how am I going to drop that much money and not see some type of a return? So the very first thing that I did was just open an LLC in my state. In my state, it's 150 in order to have the LLC papers, in order to sign the letters of, I can't remember, letters of compliance or whatever it is, to make yourself a notable LLC, a small business. I started Neotino, which I've never said this on a recording, but what Neotino is, it's actually like a word that I've made up. So Tino is actually the natives of Dominican Republic, the ones that were there when Christopher Columbus came over and murdered them all, basically. So Tino, to me, and Neo means like new, right? Like the new era of something. So to me, Neo-Tino is basically saying it's bringing back a culture that was once destroyed. So outside of the personal aspect of me, myself, I'm also thinking about that as like, that's what we do. Writing had been kind of in the background for a little bit, and I'm trying to bring it back to like a culture of taking things a little bit slower, not having to, look at your phone every 30 seconds, but just being able to be there, sit down and enjoy art kind of in the way that it would have been 50 years ago. And I think we're slowly getting into that. I think people want a little bit of a cool down, especially with how everything in the world's going on lately.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. The reason why I wanted to ask about business is because I feel like as an independent author, as an author in general, a lot of people don't focus enough attention on the business end of things. Like, it is not just writing that is your job as an author. The publishing process is an entire process by itself. The marketing, and like you alluded to a couple of times now, that's a piece of the job that always exists, no matter what. Like, you will be doing marketing, you will be getting reviews, you will be putting yourself out there, coming on podcasts and becoming a kind of a political figure, a public figure in some type of way. So it's just understanding that stuff is equally as important as understanding the semantics of like delivering plot twist and understanding how to write good characters. It's like, if you want to be a successful author, you have to also do business.
Yeah, I mean, rule of thumb. The reason I said all that thing about the letters of corporation, I think that's actually what it is, because all that money that I now spend in the book in marketing is now tax deductible. So that right there is a significant boost, not just for the small company, but just in your own ability to want to spend something. My willingness to drop a couple $100s on marketing is significantly more likely now that I understand that when I do all my tax at the end of the year, I'm going to be able to get some of that back. So, things like cards that have 5 or 10% cash back on them, things like that you could just like start, just like anything else. It's like when you start getting older, you start understanding finance a little bit better. If you apply all those logics to like that a small business is using in order to maximize their profits, and you use it on as small as a venture as making a book is, you're going to see some level of return. And that in itself is just exciting because, the difference of me, the likelihood of me dropping a couple thousand on an editor before and after LLC was like a huge increase. I mean, like, what? When I first looked at that, and I was like, all right, so you're telling me that I'm going to drop a couple $1,000s and it's not even like guaranteed. I mean, average book sales of first time authors are about 300 books in their lifetime. You average out how much you're getting, how much every book is. I mean, it doesn't even math out to the editing cost over years. And again, that's not to be tier. That's just one of those things that, it's anything in financing, you always go for the lowest possible return. Not saying that's going to happen. And if you really like focus on your craft and focus on marketing and do what you have to do, it won't be that minimum. But as far as accounting goes, you always go off that minimum. And yeah, just the idea of dropping that money without having the LLC behind me at first was like, yeah, no.
Yeah, and that's a major key because I started the same thing. I started an LLC as soon as I knew I wanted to publish a book, partly because having that business behind it and knowing that like I'm not just gonna be an author that's out here just literally self-publishing by myself. It's like, nah, I'm not gonna get taxed on a loss. Like knowing that it's gonna be a loss up front. Like I made money off the book, but it definitely didn't cover all of the expenses that came in. So it's like you have to constantly be understanding of that. And I think the other piece is just recognizing, right, that there's other pieces to being an author outside of just the writing. And I wanted to talk to you about podcasting because I know you hopped on the podcast wave. That's how I found and connected with you. It's understanding that you can make all these different connections through doing something outside of just the writing space. So what's that been like for you?
I mean, I actually just like passed basically the anniversary of the podcasting actually.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I started like last year, I would say maybe early November. And the idea was that I was on the final stages of making Allegory of the End, of finalizing everything. And I just had this idea of like, man, how phenomenal, how interesting of an idea would it be? Of course, this was with little research. If I had done even 4 minutes of research, I would have found that there were 1,000 things already like it. But to me, it was like, how interesting would it be if like I had almost like a video diary, like almost like a diary that you can go ahead and record, and you would be in my thought process for me writing the book. So like you would watch episode 1, and you would literally you would literally hear my thoughts of like what I was currently doing as an author, not just writing, but every aspect of it. I was literally just it was going to be a diary series. And actually, my first episodes were that, I think, for like the first 3 or 4. And then I just had this idea of, because the recordings were good. It was something that I was actually like legitimately happy with. But with the length I had wanted, which was like an hour and a half, I realized by like episode 4 that like I didn't have that many nuanced of ideas anymore.
Yeah, you didn't have the content support.
You know what I mean? I didn't have the content for it, because it was like, all right, well, to be completely honest, from last week to this week, I haven't really done much because I had like a job at the time. So it's like, yeah, I haven't really been able to even do anything. It's like I would just give you the same hour and a half I gave you last week. So I just hit that point of like, all right, well, you know what? I can't be alone in this. And again, it's hilarious that I'm like saying this in a way that I like cracked the code and invented it. If I had just spent 4 minutes looking it up, I would have seen that there's 1,000 things already like it. But in my head, I was like, all right, well, I can't be alone in this venture. So I remember I reached out, because I wasn't even on Instagram at the time. I had Reddit. So I reached out to a couple people that had posted, they had just recently dropped a book, hit them with the congratulations, how you doing, chatted them up a little bit. And then I asked them to be on the podcast. And of course, like I'm sure you get it all the time. And when you reach out to people, it's always like, pod, like, what the hell? Like, what, why, like almost like no idea, especially last year, you know, like Joe Rogan hadn't been bought out by Spotify yet. Like podcasting was still like to you, like your grandparents still kind of like, oh, this is kind of weird, right? And you know, I got my first two guests who are actually Nikki Beebe and Sam Animato. I know you've met both of them. And like it's funny how just thinking back on those names, like I only messaged them on Reddit and now like I know them. Like you know, I can't say we go to the bar and hang out, but that's like distance location. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're friends. Like we've talked hundreds of times since then, and they're like a great resource in this game. And shout out to them, obviously. And just the way that it progressed from there, I really couldn't have like imagined it. It was just one of like I had thought of recording it simply for my fun, not even anybody else's. And it's actually hilarious because by the third or fourth guest is when I got my first sponsor. So it was one of those things that was like, oh, you know what? Evidently, I'm like the better path here. Not saying that, you know, what I was doing before was like that, like terrible, but it was just like, you know, it's almost the same thing that I told you when you were on my episode that like, it was the whole thing about passion. Like I knew I have a lot of passion for what I was talking about, but I realized that like how much more fun it is when there's two people talking about it and you're geeking out about it, because the conversation is just like at a different level. Like people are smiling and it's not like a gratuitous smile. It's a smile of like, oh my God, yeah, I want to keep talking about this. Like if I didn't have jobs and like a life, we could be here all day.
Yeah, if I had nothing else. And I think that's important because you touched on a couple of things that are important. But one being, right, the connections you make through podcasting, through interviewing people, and how those things really feed into you just as a person, like feeling better. I noticed when I started finally talking to other authors about the writing experience and what they do, it really did make a huge difference. One, in my writing, and two, just in my life, because I just went from being the only person that I really cared about the writing to like now I got tons of people who I can talk to any day that I know care about the writing, care about the process. And then I think the other piece, sponsorships, which you talked about a little bit briefly, I really started getting onto that wave now, where now I'm trying to get more affiliates with the podcast and starting to do that more to kind of generate revenue, because podcasting is a business. It's also a business. It's a game by itself. So it's like understanding that more so now. I've kind of transitioned the model of what I was doing for podcasting to what I am doing now, where I'm trying to look for active ways to kind of build this business also. And I know a lot of it's based in writing, and the general sense of it is writing, but I'm looking to get bigger guests. I'm looking to bring on more folks and constantly change and grow this whole platform, because there's so many ways to do it. And I know I was like sitting down earlier today and I was thinking about how you had the visual component to your podcast, and you've had it for like ever. Like you've always had the videos and you've been posting them for mad long. And I was like, yo, I should consider getting a video component and doing that, because that's an area where I've just never explored, never even done it. And I have now. And I'm like, this is going to be different. Like this whole season 4 is going to be a very different experience than what it was before. And I think that some of a lot of that's attributed to just me seeing you and seeing kind of how you've moved and grooved through this process. So I want to say thank you for that, one. But two, it's like authors helping other authors grow.
Yeah, I mean, and for any tips out there for people that have their own ideas for podcasting, when the sponsorships do come in, do not sign any bullshit 360 deals. There are a couple websites that you sign on to that website, and then like the company pays you through like some like level of algorithms. Do not do that shit. If you read the actual things that you're signing, what happens is that you can only sign on to their affiliates and nothing more. And more so is that you can't reach out to other affiliates. So it's like you're over there like scratching your head like, wait a minute, the reason I got this affiliate is because I reached out, and now you're telling me to sign this. I can no longer do the same method of generating affiliates than the platform that I'm signing up on. And then what they actually take off is a motherfucker. So like basically what I'm saying is, when it comes down to that route, don't go through a middleman, talk to them straight up. If the company's actually interested in you, message Microsoft. I've had emails with Microsoft, not Bill Gates, obviously, but like with Microsoft. And like, believe me, they're a lot more receptive to things than you believe. So just reach out. It's not going to hurt you.
Yeah, I think just talking about that, right? Like being able to reach out. Don't say no to yourself. I've been telling myself that for a long time now. It's like don't close the door before someone else does. Like you can always reach out. You can always ask, what's the worst that's gonna happen? You're gonna be in the situation that you're currently in. So I started doing that, and I've seen more and more people be receptive and give feedback and be like, oh yeah, we can work on that, or we can get that done, and we can sponsor this or do whatever. And it's because once you start outreaching, you start to grow your business more. You start to become more serious. I started looking at like getting more equipment. I got new mics and got a new laptop for this whole process, just because it's a piece of one, the writing, right? The writing is the thing I want to promote, the thing I do for the love. But I also recognize that writing isn't the only way to get people to notice you and recognize you. You can get found through all these other means, and one is having a platform. So I wanted to talk about author platforms too. And I know we've talked about this before, but where do you think people should be in 2022 as we go into the year? Like last year, we talked about how everyone should basically get a podcast or get some type of platform where they can use their voice on a regular basis to talk to their fans, talk to the people around them, and make networking connections. 2022, what does that look like? Like, what does that look like going forward? From your understanding, from what you think authors should be doing if they want to kind of get found and kind of build a fan base.
We interrupt this episode to talk a little bit about Sun Scholars. Sun Scholars is a nonprofit committed to improving educational equity and college graduation rates for those students who have experienced foster care or adoption. Sun Scholars, Inc. is dedicated to serving Connecticut's former foster youth with a student-first mentality. Their goal is to support individuals and help them reach their best outcomes. If you'd like to learn more about Sun Scholars or how to donate, check out their website, sunscholarinc.org. That's sunscholarinc.org. Now, back to the show.
I think the new groove right now is, and I'm happy to say it, I think short stories are making a comeback in the form of like all these like small little sweepstakes and like little kind of just pop-up events that like certain websites or certain other author platforms will offer in order to bring promotion, bring ads to the website, whatever it is. But those little things are significant. I just recently found out about one called NYC Midnight, and I love the idea. They send you sign up just like normal, right? They just ask you for small things, lock of your hair, DNA sample, mother's maiden name, social security number,
all the regular stuff. The
regular stuff. No, I'm kidding. It's easy. It's just email and password or whatever. And you register, and then they send you a prompt at midnight. And then you have from midnight to midnight to knock out whatever it is that like you signed up for. So let's say that you sign up for a 250 short story. Boom. Flash fiction, I guess that would be called at 250 words. So that you get that prompt at midnight, and then you work on it, and then you submit your shit by midnight, and then it goes to the normal travels. But the beautiful thing here is that they have an actual team of editors. So even if your shit is trash and it gets nowhere past the runner-up phase of the competition, you have a real editor that has been paid and has had a life of writing / editing for X amount of time, giving you direct and honest feedback on your work. That in itself is a hard thing to do, as you and I know. And it's almost funny because even with all the friends that you make on Instagram, you kind of said it right there, they're your friends. So when you ask them for feedback, they don't want to make you feel bad.
Yeah.
So like the beautiful thing about this is that it's unbiased. They're giving you honest feedback about your work. So have you ever almost feel that thing of like, oh, let me get a litmus test of where I'm at? That's a good reference point. The only other one that I can think of is Reddit, but Reddit skews a little bit to the negative side because they will trash you for almost nothing.
Yeah, everything's trash on Reddit.
Yeah, like they'll trash you for absolutely nothing. So there is kind of like a in between of that. Now, as far as platforms go, I think not just a short story thing, but serializations like Wattpad, Kindle Vella. To me, this is where the future is going. If you ask me where we're at, we're with Wattpad, Inc. and Kindle Vella is kind of like what people were with traditional publishing when Kindle first came out. That like, yeah, traditional publishing was the big top. It was like that was the one that was happening. Like if you were an author for traditional publishing, you felt like a lot more secure. If somebody came up to you like, oh, I'm writing an ebook, you'd be like, oh, okay, cute. Right. And then what happened to Kindle? Dominated. I mean, where are we at right now? 30 million titles published, self-publishing alone on Kindle this year. Okay. Well, I think it's going to happen with that burst. I think that's what we're going to. I mean, look at YouTube, right? YouTube went from watching, full-length movies on there. I mean, you can still do all these things, but just like of what people typically would used to do, you'd watch like hour-long videos. Now we're just now we're on YouTube Reels, 30, 40 seconds of things, and that's what's going viral nowadays. We have TikToks, 30 to 60 seconds. You have Reels on Instagram. Everything is going down to this like compressed version of content. And I think that Kindle, Wattpad, Inc., I think they do that because now instead of you working on a book for 6 months to a couple of years, and then dropping it, and then people consuming that in whatever time frame they want, now you have like a TV show in a sense, because now you have someone to go, all right, every week, instead of me taking a couple of years to write this book, it's going to take me a couple of weeks to write this, this chapter. And when the chapter goes, I maybe take a couple of days to myself to edit it, and then I publish it. And the beautiful thing about it is that you don't need to worry about it being fine print, fine tuned, find everything, because that's the part of it. They also help you out. The community itself will help you out if they believe that the actual writing material and like the strength of your writing can like if it's worth it to them. And like for the most time it is. You know what I mean? If you really care about a project, you'll most likely find an audience. It might not be a huge million following audience, but why not? People like different things.
Yeah, I think that you made a couple of good points, and one of them is that flash content, right? Like the fact that the world is kind of transitioning to this model where we are way more inclined to take on small projects, right? We want Kindle Vella.
It's lack of commitment.
It's a commitment, right? Like to read a full book, you have to be like a real reader. Like at this point now, like people don't want to read full books. They want to read something short, something they can get through.
Think about it. When you go on Medium, they literally has a time frame thing on top of it. I'm over here thinking, it's like, why?
It's because they want you to know.
Because they want you to know. Yeah, they want you to know. It's like, hey, it'll take you like 5 minutes to read this shit. Be like, all right, I feel 5 minutes. Got 5 minutes. Hey, listen, what the fuck are you doing in your life? You're not that busy. Bill Gates is not busy. But like that's the life we're living right now.
Yeah, and I think it's important because even just to highlight that, right? As an author, it makes me think about, what do I do in 2022? Do I start to what kind of ways do I tell my stories going forward? Because it is easier to write 2,000 words, right, than it is to write 80,000. It's much quicker. I can edit that way faster. I can have that.
You can promote it as it happens instead of having to wait a year or something.
Yes, and it's like that is a really good point, because if that is the transition that's being made, right, if that's the idea, in understanding obviously the smaller pieces, right, if you start to release it in a serialized form, and you could go chapter by chapter by chapter by chapter, then eventually you might be able to actually publish that whole thing as a book later, and have this whole thing compiled where people could also go back and look at it a different way. There's like all these different ways to do the same thing, but I think that you're onto something there, because these platforms don't just pop out of nowhere, right? Like Kindle didn't just look at it and be like, oh, this would be terrible if we added this alternative for publishing. This is a bad idea. Nah, these people were smart. They sat in the boardroom and they were like, this is where the world's going. Yeah, we got to get there too.
I mean, the main thing that has really shifted my ideology is just talking to people, reaching out to different things. I always think to myself, honestly, like I had so much more of a hunger when I first started this, because I thought the same thing of like, I'm going to use like everything as like a pigeon steps in order to get like higher, more profile clients, and like more clients, more like higher up like guests. I was like, yo, Stephen King in a year and a half, bet type of shit. But I liked talking so much to people within my own thing that I never even thought about it again after I really started getting into it, because I learned so much. Just this week alone, I had just came back from like a vacation that I like, just like, like a month on vacation. I know about you guys, but like when I take like a week off, I feel like it takes me like 3-4 days to like get back into life.
Oh yeah,
because you're still in vacation mode, so you can already imagine how I feel after a month. I was like, So when I finally got like my pitches in a row, I started just doing mad recordings. I just cranking them out. Last week, this week, this week, last week, I knocked out like 4, 5, 6 recordings. My first one was with a girl that was published on Wattpad that had just published her first paperback, and the book that she released on Wattpad that she started releasing when she was in high school. I think this girl's like maybe 21.
Wow.
And she started when she was 18, 19, has 30 million reads. 30 million. 30 million. Now, this is where the fuckery comes. Though she didn't see money from that 30 million. You know, she didn't get like money from that 30 million. So that's where it's kind of like, ooh, hurt. But then she has the recognition of it. Because now when she published that book, it's already selling well. Because she, you know, even if 30 million people don't stick, you know, mathematically, at least a couple thousand of 30 million are gonna stick. You only need a couple thousand, I can tell you.
For real.
A couple thousand in book sales on your first day, that's bestseller. Based off that hype alone, you're gonna get a couple hundred just floating or like in your direction, and it's exponential. Especially if you do something that you reach out to those 30 million readers again and kind of like try to like, you know, grease up the pot. I can't see why you can't get that up to like 5, 10.
Yeah, that's an easy come up as an author.
Easy come up.
You have a fan base. You have a numerical advantage just based off of that.
I'm now understanding like the importance of that. Like my whole idea was that I was gonna sit and like, you know, in my castle and just like, you know, develop and then drop it to the world. I'm understanding now that if you can like build a fan base with absolutely nothing in your hands at all, and then start doing shit like with them. I don't know why, but like to me, like what I did, that's how I always like valued artists. Artists were people that went in their dungeon, did their shit, and then came out with their eyes like, you know, like bags, and they just came back from fucking the grocery store, and then they would drop their shit. And that's how you know they were an artist. But now we're just seeing like people do it as they come. People live stream when they're in the studio recording a new song. That's the life that we live in right now. And I think that people want that all encompassingly. They want if they're into readers, I mean, if they're into reading and they're into writing, I think they want to be seeing the trials and tribulation that the author is going through. They want to be hearing the process. And they don't just want to be hearing the good stuff. They don't want to just be hearing like, oh, I just wrote another 3,000 words. What the fuck up? I'm the man. Send your girl to my house, right? What they want is like both. If there's a mess up, if there's something wrong, they want you to hear. They want that transparency. Like, oh, you know what? I was going this way with a plot line. I just realized that I'm gonna have to like go back on 3 months of my work. I can guarantee you, for whatever reason, that 3 months will somehow be more profitable than if you didn't do it wrong. Just because you have people that are now engaged in you, and you have a fan base of people that care about you, and then when it does pop off, you have people that are going to be loyal to you. That loyalty is higher than anything else. It's the main thing that my editor told me, and it didn't stick until it stuck. But you gotta fuck this idea of like, oh, I'm gonna write the book that's gonna fucking be the next American classic. Everyone's gonna like it. It's gonna have a little bit of this. Oh, it's a sci-fi, but it has heart. So I'm gonna be able to get this and that. And this and that. It's like, listen, nah. You stick as much niche as you can. You pick your little fucking corner and you stick in it. And those people that fuck with you will shout at the rooftops about your shit and bring other people there. And that's what you want.
Yes, and honestly, there was that's exactly what you want. And I remember there was this lady, she read the book, my book, my first one, and she said, "This is the best book I read all year." I was like, "What?" That hit my heart so different, because that's one person that says that, right? And one person that has this feeling, yo, that was the best book I actually read all year. Like, that was amazing. She hasn't even read book 2 yet. So I was like, yo, wait till you read book 2. Because you thought book 1 was good. Your mind's gonna be blown. But just knowing that, right? I commented back to her, whatever. And I was just like, yo, that's a fan. Like, that's a real one. And it's important to keep those people around, because those are the people that actually support your work, that really are going to buy your next book. They're going to read the story and actually be concerned about what goes on in your world. And even the process, like how you just said, the process matters too. So I think those are gems as far as the business component of writing, because it's so much more outside of just the semantics of setting up paragraphs and stuff.
Oh my God, it's endless. I mean, I have this conversation with my girl like daily now, that like, for as much work as she may see me do, I still feel like it's 20% of what I should be at.
Yeah.
Like I can spend an entire day doing whatever it is, and it still feels like it's not like fully there. I can spend an entire day marketing and still feel like I could spend another month doing that. You spend like an entire day writing and have a great day writing, but then all you did was do like maybe a chapter. You're like, God damn,
Yep.
now there's how many left? It's a beautiful thing, but the reason I like the whole Vela thing is because I think it takes a little bit of that stress out.
Yeah.
I am very like, I can't say goal oriented, but like when I have an idea, like I'm all about steps. Like, all right, this is what we got to do. There is nothing like more maddening to me than when you're mid in between a book and you feel like that little bit of burnout and you're like, wait, but I'm only midway through.
Ooh.
This burnout can't exist. And then you have the ego of like you telling yourself that burnout can't exist, and then that burnout just getting like significantly worse because like you're forcing yourself, right?
Yep.
So that whole thing is like a mental challenge, just like anything else in life. I mean, all jobs have that level of stress, if you ask me. But I think in writing, it's just a little bit more because it's your project. It's not like something that when you do something at work that like you can easily be like, oh, well, if Jim picked up his phone that day, well, there's none of that. You're the guy, or the girl, or the dog, or whatever you want to call it. You're the person. That's on your shit. There is nothing else to answer to, and that's a beauty, and it's a blessing and it's a curse. I mean, it goes both ways. But the reason I like that Vela thing is because it kind of curves it off for me. I can now stress about a chapter, drop it, have people say that they like it, feel good about myself, write the next chapter, and keep going. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. All right, yo, this has been awesome. I want to give you an opportunity to plug where people can find you, where they can follow you, where they can get your book, Allegory of the End. I'm still working through it. You already know. Hopefully I'll have this finished before the end of 2021. So where can they find you? Where can they get your book?
Well, I just got like some more merch stuff off the press.
Hey,
these are all the type of stuff that you can expect to find in here. So like I have an engineering background. Shout out to Wentworth. Whoop, whoop. And like all the technology in here was actually stuff that I truly sat back and like developed from like a serious standpoint. And what you're seeing is that these are basically fake ads within the book that describe that. So imagine like if somebody were to write a book about 2021, you would see an ad for iPhones, for the latest version of phones, for cars, whatever it is. And then of course we have our little alien motherfucker right here. Well, actually, these are basically this is the fight scenes of the movie right here, of the book.
Hey.
Zay and Hans. The book itself, Allegory of the End, beautiful. I'm working on the hardcover right now. Out now, Amazon, pick up a copy. You can find it on Amazon, Goodreads. It's on Barnes & Noble. It's on 1,000 other things. All the links are on my Amazon at Allegory of the End, spelled exactly like that. ALLEGORYTHEEND. Truly a passion project for nothing else, just like my actual heart. You might find some blood vessels and like, weird stuff when you fucking like go through the chats, but hey, listen, okay? That's my son or daughter or whatever, my dog that you're holding, basically. It's my offspring. That there's nothing that I cared more about than this goddamn book. And now you're holding like a version of it. So go ahead and drop it on that. There's the ART podcast, aka the ART podcast. I said that wrong. There's the AR's Tales podcast, aka the ART podcast. That's my solo podcast. I talk with other authors. I had Jahmil on there like a while back, and has been a return guest on there. I have another podcast, Authors Anonymous, with Carolyn Rosa Pax, and that one's more guided to beginners and writing in advance, just as writing tips instead of just breaking down and promoting with another author. It's actually going down and being like, all right, like what can we pick up from here to better our craft? And then, there's Neotino itself, the publishing company. We have all services out now. We have a team of editors. We have a team of artists. We have a team of everything whatever it is that you need. You need a character design, a book cover, a bookmark, help with promotional things. We don't do marketing itself. I mean, shit, I'm trying to find out marketing. But if you want like promotional stuff, we do that. If you want like something like a flyer with a QR code that you can post at your library, we'll do that for like almost nothing. I think we're doing that for like, I think it's actually a part of the deal. If you buy anything, we just do that for free for the Christmas sale that we're doing right now. I'm telling you. So just come out. Like, we honestly help out. And we did recently using, I think it's called Zudo. We now accept payment plans. So like, if awesome. You want to come, so if you get an editor and you ring out the fee ends up being $1,000 and change, you do not have to pay that $1,000 and change up front. You can pay in whatever payment plan you want, $50 a month, $100 a month. We will work with you. We understand how annoying it can be to put all that money up front. So just know that. And also know anything that you buy office-wise, the mic, everything that Jahmil was saying, that's all tax deductible too. Mm-hmm. So these are all things to have considered as far as the business side goes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You dropped some knowledge today. You even got me thinking about things, which I did not come in here thinking I was going to have some ideas, but I'm going to go back to the lab and consider what 2022 is going to look like. Definitely appreciate you taking some time. This has been Scribbled Notes, and I will catch y'all later.
Scribbled Notes. Scribbled notes when I wrote these quotes. If I offend, pardon me, there's more of me to grow. Creative in my process, enjoy the show. The will is different when you recognize the different strokes. Different folks, same goals, we all want the most. So when we reach the top, we can enjoy the toast. The type of bread we get is fresh about the bakery. Told them don't play with me. With or without a degree, don't question my intensity. Bravery, similar to agencies that want to see you fold. So just pray for me. Pray for me. Einstein with my energy, mass times infinity. Been a gift since I laid my eyes on that Christmas tree. The star at the top told me what I'm supposed to be. Can't relate, you not dope as me. I'm everything I hope I be. Sometimes the road less travels ends up turning to Canal Street. Notes.